Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Irn-Cru, an American football podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. You're listening to and watching the Review Crew, and I'm your host, Brian, the conscience of Cleveland Donlan. Well, we've only got 2 more weeks of football left, folks, but less about that, more about the incredible weekend of football that we've had. We've been treated to, blessed by the divisional round of the playoffs. Now, as always, everybody, like, subscribe, follow the crew. You can find us on X, on Instagram, you can find us on YouTube, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Give us a link, get involved, chuck a wee message at us. We would love to hear from everybody. Now, as always, I am joined by 3 of the finest members that the crew could muster in such short notice on a Monday when it's still really minging and miserable outside, just after Big Storm Ice, or whatever it was called. Well, first off, nobody expected this man to be sat on the couch and not getting an opportunity to talk about a Homer game, even this late in the season. We expected this man to be talking about his team's endeavours, but he's not, and he wasn't invited to the dance. Kev, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Brian. I'm good. Been out for a dinner at a well-known carvery, and I'm a wee bit stuffed. But what a great weekend of football that we just had. I absolutely love playoff football. The best teams in the league, all on the line, playing flat out. It's been great.
You know, it actually really has. I've thoroughly enjoyed the playoffs every year, but I've especially enjoyed them this year. And the divisional round certainly gave us a lot to enjoy. Now, if we're talking about Kev not being invited to the dance, then our resident Bengal didn't even get invited to the dress rehearsal. Stu, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. I've just been spent the weekend watching the football and doing other things like sledding with the kids because we just had a huge. I know you guys had Storm Isha. We just had a huge dump of snow from Saturday, like all the way through to this morning. It kept going, so that made for some fun time with the sledding and all that. And skiing will be fun tomorrow night too. But great weekend of football, like you say. I have to say it was a lot more exciting than the previous weekend because everything seemed to be a little bit closer. But
I see. That's true, and we'll go on to talk about this as we go through it. And it was the games were a lot tighter this weekend, but they were a bit more predictable in their outcomes. I felt like we had a lot more upsets last week. I thought we had a lot of upsets last week, whereas this week, depending where I suppose you landed on the Chiefs Bills game, more or less every favourite one. Which there's a reason they were favourites, I suppose. Still a bit disappointed. Still a bit. And not just because my beloved Browns get packed out at the first hurdle. Right now, to be fair, I'm talking about dancing, and this was the only member of the crew with an invite. And unfortunately, dancing made him really tired, so he had to go home early. Liam, how are you doing, mate?
Yes, I'm grand. But disappointed. But we'll come on to that more, I'm sure. But all in all, a good weekend of football, as we were saying. So still enjoyed it all.
That's exactly it, mate. Sadly, we will need to talk about your disappointment, but don't worry. As we've said, as it feels like I only ever really say this to Kev, it feels like I don't say this to anybody else. It's therapy, mate. It's therapy. We're here to help. We're here. The healing starts today. And it could be worse. He could be let down. Even though he's been packed out a week early, he's just still the sorest, I think. Right. Okay. As always, we are going to get going with our kickoff question of the week. Now, all sport has its fair share of fairy tales, and the NFL is absolutely no exception to that. We've been hearing all year about the Lions fairy tale season, and it continues, and we will talk more about them in a wee bit. But my question for each of you gentlemen is, what is your favourite sporting fairy tale? Can be from any sport, can be for the NFL, can be for anywhere else. I know Stu's going to go all typical Canadian on us in a wee bit. And refuse to talk about something that doesn't involve a slip hazard. But any sporting fairy tale. Liam, why don't you start us off tonight, sir? What is your sporting fairy tale that warms the cockles of your heart?
So I was thinking about this before we came on, what to go with. But I'm going to go slightly back in time a wee bit to 1992. the Euros when Denmark won the Euros after not being invited to the dance, as you were talking about, when they stuck in, I think, was it Yugoslavia couldn't go or something like that because of, I think also another war on.
I
Which
think there was a
I was going to say,
war.
yeah, for like,
yeah, I was going to say that.
very
I was
serious
I was trying to be nice about it, like just
It's
obviously
okay, we're
a
only
slight
talking about alleged genocide.
but yeah, so yeah, and then obviously going on to the win always is just amazing all round, isn't it? So beating the Germany in the final, I think so. So yeah, that's my sort of fairy tale memory of yesteryear.
Right, do you know what? I'm actually going to come in. No, I was going to come to you, Kev, but I'm going to sneak in because Leah, this is why we should discuss these things before we come on. This is proof to everybody listening that we don't discuss these things before we come on. Because mine is on an exceptionally similar vein. It's Euro 2004. When Greece won it coming from absolutely nowhere, and no one expected Greece to be any good whatsoever. And they went and won the whole thing. So there you go. That was mine, and I feel like Liam's is actually probably better since it has war involved and mine doesn't. Okay, there you go. If anything, this is just proof, folks, that rehearsal is the key to all things in life. Right, Kev, coming to you, mate. What about a sporting fairy tale for yourself?
Well, I was going to go with Leicester winning the Premiership. In this modern era of money talking, and especially in that sport, that type of football. The amount of money involved now, and the disparity between the teams is ridiculous. So the fact that Leicester managed to win that was unbelievable, and that was a fairy tale. But I didn't want to go for another soccer one. So I'm going to go for Tiger Woods. I think him coming back and winning a major after all of his issues, all his personal problems and everything like that, to make it back to the top and win another major. I think everybody was kind of rooting for him, and that was one of my favourites.
Do you think that he was insured by Progressive or State Farm? I'm just trying to think which insurance company Tiger Woods would get an advert with. I mean, we had all of it at homes with Baker Mayfield for Progressive. What would Tiger Woods' car insurance advert be like after all of the issues that he faced? Where I'm trying to be very diplomatic about what happened with Tiger Woods in automobiles being attacked by very unhappy partners. Right, okay. Before I get us in trouble with some random legal team somewhere, Stu, what about you, mate? What was your sporting fairy tale?
It took me a bit to decide on this. Like, I admit, I've been kind of also keeping up with the Australian Open right now, so tennis has been in the forefront of my mind. So at first, I was going to lean towards something kind of recent in Emma Raducanu, like winning the US Open over the other year, like coming through qualifying and everything. But I live in Canada, so I'm going to talk about something Canadian, which is ice hockey. So a few years back now, or just some backstory to this, ice hockey is one of these mental sports where, as much as it's the fourth biggest kind of the big four sports in North America, so there's billions behind it. Franchises are kind of like some of the richest sports clubs in the world. Like, if you're talking about the Oilers here, or the New York Rangers, Toronto Maple Leafs, etc. But one of the weird things about the sport is that obviously you've got your usually you have your lineup of players, and you will have a sub goaltender, so a sub goalie.
I know where this story's going, and it's great.
The emergency backup. The emergency backup is a thing in ice hockey, and I absolutely love it because so every single game in the NHL, what they'll do is you'll have your normal sub goaltender that's going to play for can play for your team if your other guy gets injured. Now, if that guy gets injured, there's always an emergency backup goaltender at the rink. And who the emergency backup goaltender is, it's usually like, it could be, for instance, like I've seen a guy that was like a goaltender for the University of Alberta Golden Bears. He was on standby for the Oilers game once. And the whole thing with emergency is he can play for either team. He's not like, okay, you're this team's emergency or that team's emergency guy. So anyway, back, a few years ago now, there's a guy called David Ayres who was 42 years old, and he was the Zamboni driver for Toronto's AHL affiliate team. So that's like their junior team, basically, Toronto Marlies. Now, in this game, Carolina Hurricanes, who are one of the best teams in the league, and they were at the time as well, what I think before the game, one of their goalies got sick, so he couldn't go, so they had to play with the main guy was starting, so that was fine. Then he got injured, so it ended up with there was a situation where their goalie couldn't go on, and the other guy was too sick to play. So this Zamboni driver, who thought he was just getting a free ticket to watch the game for the night, essentially, he gets told, okay, you need to go into the Carolina dressing room, put on like the spare goaltender gear, and get out there, kind of thing. So he then goes into the game. He did let 2 goals in, but he stopped 8 of 10 shots. So remember, this is a 42-year-old guy that's not really played professional since, or not even professional, he played college hockey, I think. And then apart from that, he's just been playing beer league ever since and driving a Zamboni. So he ended up, he won the game 6-3. So he still got credited with a win in the end. So that's my fairy tale story, because I love the fact that it's almost like a lottery thing where, maybe I'll get the call for the Edmonton Oilers one day to be like, hey, can you come and sit in with the emergency goalie? And
that's it.
In the
net. Surely there is not a sports fan alive. Like, Kev, Liam, we all must be the same. You've all sat there, been in the stadium watching a game and thought, see if the manager called. I would answer. Come with the man.
But imagine the NFL if there was emergency kickers or something like that. So, whenever you see like guys get, when kickers get injured and then you see teams going, I guess we're just going to go for like 2-point attempts for the rest of the night because we don't have a kicker here or whatever. And obviously we had like, was it the running back? Who was it that got the PAT earlier this year? Do you remember that?
Right. It was Texas guy, wasn't it?
New kickoff question, guys. New kickoff question. Right, so I should really, again, talk about things we should have rehearsed first, because if Stu had told me this, I could have thought about it. In an NFL game, you're in the stands. A position group gets wiped out by injury and there's problems, and your head coach turns, he scans the crowd, and he finds you, says, you are stepping in. Which position group do you feel you could step in? And do you know what? I'm sorry, Stu. I am banning kickers.
Oh!
No kicking and punting. You have to be an actual on-the-field position. So no kicker or punter. What position would you feel that you would stand the least chance of embarrassing yourself entirely if you were asked to step in? What would it be? What would you go for? I'll go with mine. Give you a minute to think. I reckon I could potentially come in at safety. I would go safety because I'm not picking anybody off. I'm not going to catch it. And these specs, I can't catch, but I can get in the way. I'm good at being in the way. I can do that. I can run a bootlots and get in the road. I reckon I could do that. I reckon I could step in at safety if I was really needed.
Well, I was going to cop out and say kicker until you banned it, but
kickers are banned. That's an easy. We would all take kicker. I want a position where you stand a real chance of either having to tackle or getting tackled.
Well, I'm going to go QB, and I'm going to hope that. And I'm going to hope that we've got a hell of an offensive line.
Kev's quarterback, provided they can get 7 seconds behind the line at every snap.
That's it.
Oh, right, Liam, Stu, come on. What we got? Where are you playing?
Liam, you go first.
I was going to cop it and go holder, but I won't do that. So
that's high pressure. You don't hold. Lisa's out.
I'm going to go down the same view, kind of vein as Brian, but I'm going to go cornerback. I'm quite tall, so I feel like I could get in the way.
Liam,
I say
tall.
I wouldn't trust myself to catch the ball, so at least I can just pat it away or smack it away or something. So,
you've got the height going for you. You can. I imagine you've got a good vertical. I think the combine vertical jump would be your event. I think you'd be in about that. Right, and do you know what? I wouldn't need to do this for Kev or Liam, so I only need to do this for Stu. Kickers and punters are banned. So is long snapper, Stu. You're not having long snapper either.
How did you know I was actually going to head for?
Just before Stu comes in, I'd be the long snapper. Right, on you go, Stu. Where would you be? Where would you step in for your beloved Bengals?
You know what? I mean, I was also going to, if I'm not allowed long snapper, kicker, or punter, I was actually going to head for quarterback and just hope that I had an amazing running back that I could just hand the ball to.
Pass it to.
Nah, you know what? Nah, I'm just going for it. I'm going wide receiver. I think I could play slot. And I think
slot receiver.
I love running and all that. I mean, I think I'd probably get broken ribs instantly, but like I'm not that tall, so I can't rely on the height. So give me the slot position, and I'll just either kind of try and get in the way of folk, and maybe make the odd catch for a first down, and that'll be me.
I think say what the real question here should probably be: which of us do we think would last the most snaps before we die? Before we get absolutely flattened by somebody. Right, okay. That was. I'll be honest. The impromptu, unscripted kickoff question was far better than my original kickoff question. So thank you, Stu, for inadvertently setting that up.
Welcome.
Right, okay. We're going to get going now. We reminder for everybody listening on the 2nd of February, Friday the 2nd. It is going to be awards time. We are getting towards that time of the season where the NFL likes to hand out awards. We like to hon out awards. So make sure you catch up with the crew Friday the 2nd. Dan is working feverishly behind the scenes on categories and all the rest of it. He's even going to make sure that there's actual voting done so that we don't wind up with 15 different suggestions for every single award. So make sure you get stuck into that. Now, before we get wired in to the big talking point of the evening and we start getting stuck into the actual divisional games, wee bits of news. There's not as much news as the boys had before the games. Well, other than the games themselves, which I suppose is the news. But little bits of news that we've got. One for you, Kev. Nick Sirianni is safe, or throwing everybody else in his coaching team under the bus. It's a point of view thing, I'm sure. We are waiting for a press conference on Wednesday where it is widely expected that Sirianni will confirm that he's going to be back next year. And yeah, I'll be surprised at this, Kev. Is this shocking news?
No, I'm not surprised at that. Do you know, it's hard to say what went wrong. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that Patricia getting put in charge of the defensive play calling was, maybe where it all started to go wrong. But, I don't think, if you look at the last season and up until week 12 this year, we're doing a lot of stuff right. And Sirianni was responsible for much of that. So I don't think it's a surprise that he's going to be getting at least one more roll of the dice next year. And I suppose the way our season ends means there's going to be a hell of a lot of scrutiny on him, and he's going to have to fix it and quick. But yeah, I think he's earned the right to get a stab at it again next year.
To be fair, Kev, when you're trying to evaluate where you think it went wrong, I would humbly suggest losing 5 of your last 6 games. Probably an indication it was going a bit further. Moving on for that, the Lions have brought Zach Ertz in to the practice squad. It was signed early today. Into the practice squad, by most accounts, it looks like he will be immediately elevated to be ready for the NFC Championship game, which we will get to talking more about how the Lions got there in a wee minute. Liam, what do you think? Zach Ertz, he's showing his age now, but is he still enough to potentially come in and be that veteran presence, add a wee bit to the Lions fairy tale for the year?
Yeah, well, he's always been a kind of, as you say, a good veteran player, hasn't he been? It's not a bad player to bring in this late in the season. Whether he can do, I'm sure he can do some job blocking. Will he be catching the ball that much? He probably won't need to with Sam Laporta there, to be fair, but I think he'll do a reasonable job. So I think it's not a bad shout this late in the season.
Yeah, it's a good grab. Laporta's been looking good, but we know he's been getting a bit dinged up. So even if he's maybe taking a bit of the pressure off Laporta, it's maybe the idea. And maybe, as you say, actually blocking assignments and some of the gritty, no nice parts of being a tight end is very possible the plan is. And then so I've saved this bit of news for yourself, Stu, as it does include one of your beloved Bengals. Brian Callahan and Thomas Brown are both being interviewed in person. The news made a point of referencing that these are in-person interviews to make it sound very important and serious. but they're both being interviewed in person for the Titans head coaching role. Now, offensive coordinators going up for head coaching roles, it's not actually as common as it used to be, but it's not an uncommon thing. However, I'm going to say going to the Bengals for an offensive coordinator and going to the Panthers for an offensive coordinator are two very different ecosystems that you're looking at there. I think it's as Kev said earlier, we're casting the net far and wide with the search in Tennessee. What do you make of it? Is this just an unfortunate part of okay? The Bengals season this year has not been the fairy tale that you would like. Of course, injuries and all the rest of it have played a toll. But the Bengals offensively for the past number of years have very much been one of the big success stories of the league. Is this just the price you pay for that kind of success?
Oh no, totally. And I mean, I will say as well, I'm actually surprised that we've managed to last so long with a completely intact coaching crew without people being poached and kind of moved on. And I mean, you know, I obviously talk a lot about Big Lou, kind of Lou Anarumo, and the fact that he's not really had any interviews this year is very pleasant for me, because losing him was more of a worry than losing some of the players in the past. As for Callahan, like, I would love to keep him, but at the same time, the guy's done so well over the past few years that I'm not surprised to see him getting interviews. And if he was to get offered a head coach job, then fair play to him. I think he's more than earned it. Like, even if you look at our year this year, and the circumstances and the hand he was dealt, like in terms of, like, you know, you've got a hobbled Burrow to start the year, then he goes out and you're bringing in a rookie quarterback and you've got to try and kind of scheme things up for him to work. So you're basically changing. It's almost like throw the playbook out and then here's a new one. And the fact that we stayed relevant until the last few weeks of the season kind of shows you how well he was doing, especially with our struggles on the defensive side of the ball. So, I think that's just something that comes with success.
Yes, and I'm just bringing it back just to be genuine and not sarcastic to Kevin the Eagles. Very genuinely, but a lot was made of the Eagles' success last year, and then we all know the story about the losses that he suffered in the coaching side of things. Like, do you put a lot of the struggles that the teams face this year to just you've lost some incredible talent in the coaching staff? You know what I mean? It's not a secret to anybody to say that, but how do you as a fan kind of looking in think that's really hurt us big style this year?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the strange thing for me is that, you know, we started the season so well, given that we lost both our offensive and defensive coordinators in the off season. So the surprise for me was that we started so good despite that. But as the season's gone on, obviously, as I said, it's hard to say what's gone wrong. You can't really point the finger too much at the guys that have come in, because their record was 10-1 early in the season. So, as you know, I'm trying really hard to to decide or to figure out where it kind of all started going wrong for us, and I'm kind of starting to settle on maybe just a long, tough season, and it just got too much for the players. They run out of steam. Obviously, you know, people need somebody to blame. They can't just you know, be that pragmatic and say, well, you know, it is what it is. You know, there's got to be somebody to throw under the bus, so to speak. And maybe, you know, that's what's going to happen. But I just say, you know, learn from it, move on, start again next season.
Quite right. We do always look for somebody to blame, Kevin. I'm going to choose to blame you. If you were a better fan, the Eagles would have done better this year. Last time you were in Philadelphia, last time you made the trip out. You need to get yourself into boots more. That's an incredible in joke, actually, for everybody listening. Nobody outside of our group chat will get. So moving on. Right, we are actually going to move on and talk about some of the amazing divisional football that we had this weekend. Now, we are going to start with myself for shock horror. I'm taking the Bucks game. It was the first game of the weekend. It was the Bucks at, as we have said many times tonight, everybody's favourite fairy tale, the Detroit Lions, and the fairy tale rolls on. 31-23 it finished. It was an absolute cracker of a game. What a way to start the weekend. It was proper end-to-end stuff. Okay, yeah, it's 31-23. It's not a low-scoring game. It's not what MD would call a shootout. But just some of the plays that went on and the do you know, I'm going to say that the grit and determination from Tampa Bay. Yeah, don't be wrong. It's not a surprise for anybody to hear that I love Baker. It's a well established fact. But the Tampa Bay team really coming from the south, everybody's favorite division to mock because it's been such a nonsense all year. To then come and play really seriously good playoff football for the vast majority of, well, certainly all of the wildcard round, and then the vast majority of the divisional round, right up until the end of it, is a big testament to the team to really stepping it up when they needed to, right at the end of the year. And it's the old football adage: it doesn't matter how you start the season, it's how you end it. And they kind of got hot. But the Lions actually really look like they're legit. And Detroit is not only celebrating getting their first playoff win since, I don't know, 1743. I'm fairly sure the Mayflower hadn't landed before the Lions get their first playoff win. But for that, and then they look like a team that could keep rolling. I don't see anybody looking at Detroit and going, yeah, that's the easy one. That's the one that we want to take. The story behind that just feels like it feels like that story's still got chapters to be told. It doesn't feel to me like we're going to be sat here next week saying, "Oh well, the Lions, they made it all the way to the championship game and then they get packed out." I can really see the Lions going all the way. I can see the Lions. Don't know they'll win a Super Bowl. I can see them appearing. I can see them getting through. And I know that's a big ask. And I know that it's San Francisco that they'll need to face. But I don't know. You talk about who you see coming out. I see the Lions winning this. Wee bits of tail of the tape, obviously, in the game. It was cagey first quarter, a couple of field goals, lots of kind of feeling each other out, all the rest of it. But pardon me. We moved through the game, and it's, for me, the big story of the game was, and it's not a surprise, it's turnovers and it's penalties. Bucks gave up. Now, again, they didn't give up hundreds and hundreds of penalty yardage, but they gave up just shy of double the penalty yardage that the Lions gave up. And most importantly, they turned it over twice. Now, the first interception's not on Baker. I don't care what anybody says. That first interception gets batted up into the air. Yeah, did he probably put a bit too much in the pass? Probably. It's been said a lot about Baker. Wide receivers have kind of consistently throughout Baker's career said that he throws the ball hot. He chucks it with zip behind it. And when it hit, trying to catch that, you're up in the air, it can be hard, and it's went up and went away. The last interception, however, that's all on Baker, unfortunately. Even as the biggest Baker lover going, he's thrown it early. He's thrown it into coverage. He's been making eye contact with the defender that catches it. It's really about as bad an interception as you can get in one of the most critical moments. I feel terrible for the guy because he looked really cut up after the game. Talking about, felt like his heart had just been ripped out. But as we say, we end it in the high. Jared Goff playing some really clean football. 287 yards, couple of touchdowns, no turnovers. Jahmyr Gibbs having a day. 74 yards on 9 carries. Absolutely incredibly efficient running. Touchdown for him as well. Amon-Ra, again, this is the thing that makes these Detroit Lions. No, you look at the box score. Nobody's impressive. Look at that box score. It's spread about. Everybody's doing their own wee bit. And I suppose that's what makes them impressive. It's everybody across that team seems to be turning up and performing. Amon-Ra, 77 yards on 8 receptions. Laporta, 65 yards on 9. Gibbs, on top of his rushing work, another 40 yards through the air. So, an absolutely incredible day for Detroit. The fans are obviously absolutely beside themselves. and thoroughly looking forward to moving on to next weekend in a championship game and a chance to really play for something meaningful. Gents, what were your guys' thoughts? What were some of the things that started off our weekend and Saturday night? What were some of your big kind of thoughts that you looked at this game, you thought, wow. Lord, what quiet.
Don't all talk at once. For me, I thought it was another big game for Mike Evans. I felt sorry for him that he was on the losing end, and it was a really, really, really good game. Close, one score in it, and I think the way that Mike Evans had been playing, and Baker for that matter, you thought that there was a big finish on the cards when they got the ball back with the 2 minutes left to play, and it was just a shame that it just fizzled out with that interception late.
Yeah, Evans was incredible. 147 yards and 8 receptions. You're like, what? Imagine that. You put up. Okay, I was about to say a career day. It's Mike Evans, though, so it's not a career day for Mike Evans. For Mike Evans, it's a Tuesday. But it is an incredible stat line to put up to be on the losing side.
It's a shame.
It is a heartbreaker, isn't it? Stu, what were you? What was when you were watching this one? You missed a big chunk of this one actually.
I watched the highlights, but like I'm sitting looking at the stats for the game just now, and it's like even obviously Mike Evans on the Bucks side is the big one with 147 yards. If you look at it, even Cade Otton, we only had 5 receptions for 65 yards. That's still and a touchdown. That's still 13 yards a reception. Chris Godwin, another great receiver, 10 yards per reception, 40 yards overall, 10 yards per reception on his 4 kind of thing as well. So it's like they're making up like enough yards to get first downs and stuff. And so the Tampa Bay passing attack was definitely in there. Same with the rushing, like even for that, like Rashad White. Yeah, they were definitely rushing less because they were chasing the game for most of the time. So Baker was getting, sort of forced to chuck it a lot more. Rashad White, 9 carries, 55 yards. If you're averaging 6.1 yards per carry, you're doing something right. And Rashad White's done that all year, kind of thing. So it's like if you're getting that 6.1 yards, then you're probably going to be able to, in a couple of rushes, get a first down, kind of thing. Is seen as 6.1 times 2 is what 12.2, and there's 10 yards for a first down. So.
Is it what you've heard of girl math? This is crew math.
The crew math, yeah. how you get first downs, but no, like for Tampa, I think what they showed was they are a team not far removed from winning a Super Bowl, and they're still they're still up there, and they're still at least to make the playoffs, kind of thing. They made the playoffs last year despite going out earlier. The big thing that's going to decide their off season is can they find a way to keep Mike Evans, and I don't know if they can, like the way the money's the way it's all trickling down and how much he's due getting paid. And the guy does have his ring already. So is he going to want the payday kind of thing? And is he going to go somewhere else as well? But no, but there's that. And then from the other side for me, it's just that continuing Detroit Lions kind of feel good story. Jared Goff being good enough kind of thing, good enough for Detroit. And it's excellent.
Don't say good enough, you'll make Kev feel sad.
Just good enough. Just good enough.
Tell you what, I'm going. So, do you know what? Right, sorry, Lee, why don't you go? You go for what were your big thoughts for this game? Then I'm going to ask a shameless question.
No, I was just thinking, I know we kind of touched obviously on the offenses. The other thing I thought was impressive from the Lions was the way they were getting at Baker. I think their blitzes coming off the side, the amount of times they seemed to be unblocked, just running. I think it was Brian Branch had at least 1, maybe 2, and I can't remember the other player now. Was it Melifonwu? Is that how you pronounce it? I think another one. But they were just unblocked.
Melifonwu had 1.5 sacks. Branch had 1. Hutchinson got in and 1, and Reeves Maben was the other 0.5.
But the Tampa's kind of offense line, as much as they were doing well, they just didn't seem to be covering them as many times. It just seemed to be. It just seemed to be all the time. It probably wasn't as much as that, but just that they were stepping up. Detroit, they've had their ups and downs in defense, I suppose. So they kind of, I think that was kind of good to see going into the next round, obviously.
Right. Okay. Before we move on to the next game, here's my closing question. This because it's Detroit's story continues and it's still to be told. So we're not going to look too deep into them. For Tampa Bay, that is the story closed for the year. That is them done. Do they pay Baker. Baker he's on a very, very light 1 year deal with them. Suppose you would call it a prove it deal. He took you into the playoffs and he got you a playoffs win. Does that get him? I'm not going to say paid. We're not talking Deshaun money. We're not talking Lamar money. But do the Bucks commit in some way to Baker, or do they try and? I was going to say do something in the draft, not with their draft position. They're not going to get in for any of the top talent in the draft this year. Do they stick with Baker for a year and try and give him something to see him, tempt him to stay in Tampa for a few seasons? What do we think?
I would. I mean, I think if I'm Tampa, again, it's the money is the issue. Like, because like I just said with Mike Evans, trying to find the cash to bring him back. Like, yeah, they have a decent amount of, because we were talking about this during the week, they have a decent amount of cap space coming up. The problem
47 million in cap space.
But they'll only have 40 guys signed going into next season.
Yeah.
So you're using 47 million to try and sign 11 people. And Mike Evans is, one of these guys. If he wants paid, he's going to be getting 20, 25 million. So he's out the window. So for Baker, I mean, I think he's a quarterback. So you're probably going to want to pay your quarterback something. If they can get him for, 15 million, and then you go light on some of the other positions, maybe that's what you do. But I don't know. I think it's even going to be hard to bring Baker back, to be honest. But I would do it though.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. I think I'd bring him back as well. I think you can't really have to have a playoff run. You can't really not try and sign him back. I think. I suppose the only worry is thinking back to the season before. Does it turn you into a bit of like a Daniel Jones-esque sort of signing? They got to the playoffs, sign him, and then disappears again. Hopefully not. But
Baker's good in alternate years. Baker plays very, very well, then poorly, then very, very well, and then poorly. So you really want, you want to wish Baker on your rival team next year, and then onto a team you like the year following.
I think the answer is that it really does depend on the rest of the roster and how that shapes up. Like Stu said, if they're keeping Evans and they manage to keep the majority of that team intact, then you would think it makes sense to keep Baker there. If Evans is going out the door, they're looking at a rebuild, then maybe they cut their ties and they look at the future. I don't know.
Stu's
favourite quote: "Blow it up and start again." Blow it all up.
It's hard though because I look at Tampa and I kind of go, they're sort of in the position. Well, look how the Rams have kind of turned it around. Like they're not obviously they're out of the playoffs already, but they made the playoffs this year. And they do look, with having young guys like Puka and that coming into their team, they look like they probably could compete in that division again next year. So if you're Tampa, you've got to look at it and go like, well, how far away are we from, are we only going to go downhill from here? Or do we think we can massage the roster enough to maybe go another round next time? Because if we go another round, they're in the conference final and you're one step to the Super Bowl, so you never know. So I don't know. It's tough. That's summer chat, though. I guess.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it all comes down to their opinion on the roster next year and what direction they're going to move in. I think if they're trying to keep as much of it together as possible, then you keep Baker. But if you're thinking that you're declining here and you're going to have to start a rebuild, then I think you just get rid of him as well and totally start again.
Well, it's going to be interesting, and tell you what, seamlessly moving from one team with big questions and quarterback ahead of them to one team that certainly seems to have answered all of their quarterback questions that they had before the season, and another team that's saying, stuff your quarterback model, we can do it with somebody irrelevant. It is going to be time to move on. We'll talk about the Packers at the Niners. Liam, I hate to do it to you, mate. You must have enjoyed the ride, surely, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, how do I describe this? I'm like, proud, as I say, but frustrated, I think, after that. I think is probably a way to put it. I think, it was coming into the game, I think, obviously, big underdogs. I think we were like 10 points. I think those
massive
underdogs. Which I suppose we expected, but I thought it was a bit far after Dallas, when we were, I think, 7 points underdogs. So, anyway, it was a kind of weird night, windy, wet night, I suppose. And we started off we started off our drives well. We think we had 3 drives into the red zone, but I think that was the downfall. We didn't convert. I think we got 1 field goal. We didn't convert the rest of it. We had that potentially dodgy placement of the ball maybe in the 4th down, but we wouldn't dwell on that too much. I think,
sorry, I'm going to dwell on it for like half a second. We live in a world where Apple can find your phone from halfway around the world. Yeah, in one of the most cash-rich sports on the planet, we use a length of chain to figure this stuff out. It will never not confuse me.
We tried to do it twice. They did it twice because they did it later on, and then we challenged it and got it. But yeah, so yeah, it was interesting.
I love the history of the chain gang. I love all of that. It's fabulous. But my God, guys, surely we can do better now. Sorry, moving on. Liam, take it away.
It's all right. I'm glad you moaned about it. That's fine. Carry on.
But
yeah. So yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, the first couple of drives, the other part of that was I think we obviously got a field goal, and then the other big play we missed was Savage, our safety, missing intercepting Purdy, which he basically threw him right at him, and he just dropped it. Basically, nothing more you can say really about it. And kind of watching as a fan, you kind of felt this is not going to be our night. I think, but to be fair, we turned it around. We got ahead. And we kind of kept, for the most part, the Niners relatively at bay. Obviously, McCaffrey in the end, if you look at his box score, did pretty well in the end. He was like nearly 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. So an efficient night, but we kept the kind of big plays to a minimum, I thought, for the most part. And obviously we were 21-17, I think, up before we lost it.
21-14.
21-14. So yeah, we just kind of, I suppose, could you call it choked at the end? I don't know, maybe it was. We just obviously Love threw his first interception, which it was a right play, but it was just a bad ball. He just bit behind. I think it was Kraft, the tight end, and he just stuck his hand up, couldn't catch it. The ball went up in the air and then intercepted. So fair enough, you get those. Sometimes you don't. So, and then I suppose the other big kind of talking point was our kicker, which he's been up and down all season. So to be fair, it's been interesting, the commentary. Like, I think lead up to the game, they were basically like, LaFleur was like, we're going to see it through, we're going to just stick with him, carry on. And he obviously whiffed that field goal near the end to go 7 points ahead. And then you just kind of knew from there we were going. You kind of had that gut feeling of we're going to lose this now, aren't we? And then the final drive, the final throw was just a bad interception, but just a bit of rush of blood to the head, I think, from Love, but a bit of let's just try and do it all and just hope. And obviously, it didn't work out, shall we say? To put it mildly.
A little bit of hero ball coming in at the end. Everybody's favourite name for something in the league. Hero ball sounds so good, then you realise it's an insult. It's a really interesting one because, as you say, the Niners were runaway favourites. You know, like nobody was really pegging the Packers to pull an upset here, and to say you're in it, you're getting into the get into the fourth. You're sat there at, as said, 21-14, and get into in the fourth quarter, and you're like, come on now. That's, you are ahead here, but then you let the Niners put 10 up on you without reply. And that's kind of the story. Pardon me. That's kind of the story of it.
Brian, is that not also the first time that, or it's either the first or the second time that the Niners have been losing, got into a fourth quarter, and then went on to win the game?
Oh, it could be.
I need to go back and check that stat for sure.
But that's an interesting one.
That's a whole thing, because I know it was coming up numerous times this season. There was a whole thing about the Niners when they go into the fourth quarter behind, they never win, and if they're ahead, they always win, kind of thing, because they just close it out with their defence. So that for me is an interesting point on the game, that the Niners have finally been able to, when it really matters and really counts, they were able to, as bad as they were able to turn up and basically drive it across the line, and that's a kind of mark of champions, shall we say?
These things always come around in the end, though, Stu. At one point, the Eagles had won 5 games from losing position at half time.
Yeah.
And then we all know how that turned out. So.
Totally, but I know with the Niners, it's been like 5 years of they never ever win if they're losing going into the fourth quarter. Like it's some bonkers. One thing I'll say as well, actually, if you are the Niners, and what would concern me, apart from Debo's shoulder maybe being broken again, is the fact it was the penalties. Well, the amount of flags they were taking. Because if you look at here, like for the stats, they had 6 penalties for 83 yards. They gave up for the Packers, and that was one of the things that maybe helped the Packers on their way to being more involved. But that lack of discipline from the Niners, you think if you start doing that in like a championship game or in the Super Bowl, if they make it there, you give up 83 yards for free. It's like it's still going to help you win the game, kind of thing. So,
well, yeah, you look at that. So Jordan Love put up 194 yards on the night.
Yeah. And
San Francisco gave him nearly half of that again. So it is. It's a big question. It's one of these ones, I suppose, because one of the big questions you say, Niners, not to say Niners choke, but they maybe don't show that resilience, that ability to come back when they're down right at the end. And they've clutched up in this game, and they have managed it. They're right enough. They've came back against, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all. They came back against certainly the youngest roster in the playoffs, if not the youngest roster in the league.
It's the youngest
roster. Somebody correct me in that. If it's not the youngest in the league, it's certainly thereabouts. So it's an inexperienced team that they're doing it to. And the Niners are the Avengers. We've had this chat all year. They are the most complete roster in the league. There are we've all talked about, and we will talk about the Ravens and stuff, how they are playing incredible and they look like a great team. But there are holes in the Ravens roster. You can look down that roster and say, oh, you could be a bit stronger at running back. Yes, they've brought people in, but you could look at it and say there's places there you could be better. You struggle to do that with that Niners team. So, they're finally showing that little bit of resilience. Maybe not against the toughest and the toughest playoff opponent that they could have been faced up with. First 7th seed to get a win in the playoffs. So certainly that's got to be something for Green Bay. But it's the Niners are showing that, and if they can balance it, if they can screw the nut, that they are a team that's very much one to watch. As much as I want to see the Lions keep doing it, the Niners are going to be tough sledding for them going into the championship game next week. Liam, a big one for you, I suppose, with this, and it's always a crappy question to ask. How do you feel looking at the season now that it's over? Now that what is your overriding emotion? Do you look back and do you know what? That was a hell of a ride. I'm happy with where we wound up. Wildly overexceeded their expectations. Are you still a bit sore?
Obviously, I was saying, I was a bit frustrated because it was there for the taking really this game. But again, from where we were coming into the season to what we've got to, I think we've answered what we needed to answer. Is Jordan Love a competent enough QB? I'm not going to announce he's like Hall of Famer and that, or the next coming of Aaron Rodgers or something. But he's a competent QB, definitely. That was the main aim of this season, really, to find out could he be our franchise quarterback. I think we've answered that question. So, and then as we've touched on, the youngest roster in the league, got loads of rookies, first and second year players, certainly in offense. I suppose hope is probably the overriding feeling that things are going to keep going, hopefully, for next season, and hopefully we can build on it, I suppose, is the main thing, really.
Well, it certainly looks like things are potentially quite sunny in Green Bay, which is odd because Green Bay's freezing.
Green Bay.
But for moving from one team that seems to have discovered a franchise quarterback to another game featuring another team that it's early days, but they look like they may have discovered a franchise quarterback as well. It's this guy Lamar Jackson. You may have heard of him. No, it's of course, well, it's Lamar Jackson, but of course the discovery would be CJ Stroud. When we think about our next game, Texans at Ravens, again, another game much like the last one with a very, very firm betting line from the bookies. Let's just say that there was definitely a favourite going into it. Kev, take us through this one, mate. What was the tail of the tape, as they call it?
Well, this one was probably the only one of the 4 games this weekend where the bookies didn't have to sweat, or at least not for very long. I was really excited to watch this game. Everybody knows that we all have a bit of a soft spot for the Texans on the Gridiron Crew, and we've been enjoying watching them all season. So I was looking forward to this, and it started off great. Two teams really keeping it really tight on defense. We exchanged. They exchanged kicks in the first half, so field goals rather, I should say. So in the first quarter, it finished 3-3 then it started to heat up a wee bit. We got a touchdown from the Ravens, and the response was a 67-yard punt return touchdown from from the Texans. So yeah, started to come alive then. Really good game to watch. And then just before halftime, we had a missed field goal from the Texans, who had a chance to take the lead. And then unfortunately, that's where it all kind of finished for the Texans. Second half, Lamar Jackson decided to turn up, and he just started running all over the Texans on offense. Got 2 rushing touchdowns, chucked another one to Likely, and unfortunately, the fairy tale that we've seen all year with the Texans, with their young quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, this is where it ended, because that Ravens defense just took time away from him. Got in his face, and they stopped being able to do anything on offense. So 10 was their lot in this game. They couldn't put up any more points in the second half. And yeah, in the end, probably the result you would expect. A decent first half to watch. In fact, I still enjoyed the second half. It was good seeing Lamar doing what Lamar does.
Lamar things.
Yeah, Lamar doing Lamar stuff. But it was a. I don't know. I felt bad. I was kind of sad for the Texans and for CJ Stroud to see it come to the end the way it did. With such a whimper in that second half.
It's a funny one because me and Stu will do our best to put our divisional rivalry and hatred for all things Baltimore aside. I don't. Nobody was. The Texans were walking into this with realistically pretty minimal pressure on them. There was little pressures you can have walking into the divisional round of the playoffs. The Texans had that, but the manner of the defeat, I think, is the thing that you look at and you go, that's a shame, innit? Things that jump out again, penalties. You cannot give Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens 70 yards to play with. You can't do it. You look at Lamar's stat line and you go, all right, passing stat, he only chucked it 22 times. But he only had to chuck it 22 times because he carried it for another 11 and 100 yards. So it was a bit of a mismatch. I don't think that's unfair for me to say that at the end, the score line is a fair reflection of the game. But it is one of the things, I suppose, to put it back out to you guys, Stu, Liam, is this the kind of thing where, as a fan, it can be hard to do this. Texan fans listening very possibly don't agree with this or don't feel this way. But is this one where, a wee bit like Green Bay, I suppose, you chalk it up to experience. You say, look, we had zero expectations going into this year. We had zero expectations going into this game. So it's fine. We dust ourselves down. We come back next year, another year under CJ, a year under CJ's belt, a year under D'Amico's belt, and we really try and attack this league from next season. Is that how the Texans need to be looking at this?
I mean, yeah, I would say so. Like it's one of those things where they were holding it 10-all at half time, so even getting that far was pretty good. I think it went the way we expected it to go in this game because, like you said earlier, the Ravens roster, despite maybe not having the, I know you were saying the rushing game isn't all that good, but I'm looking at it going, well, obviously there's Lamar, who's an absolute weapon anyway, but Justice Hill, 13 carries, 5.1 yards a carry. Gus, sure, he was maybe only averaging 4 yards a carry, but it's the Gus bus kind of thing. A lot of the time in the red zone, he's a machine. And on that rushing thing, though, that's the one place where I look at Houston and I go, okay, I know Devin Singletary, he had 5 receptions for 48 yards, which is excellent. But you look at the rushing, 9 carries for 22 yards. So he averaged 2.4 yards a carry. And that's been a thing for them all year. Houston were winning by chucking it. And I feel like that's what they need to add for next season is, you keep Singletary around and you maybe still use him for the odd kind of the dump off pass and that, because he does do well with that. But they need to find, what I call the bowling ball type player, which is kind of like your A.J. Dillon and the Packers and the way Perrine was for the Bengals. And I feel like we missed him this year. And the way he was for the Broncos, like just that guy that's I'm just going to go, or Pacheco.
Straight up the gut.
Straight up the gut, and I'm going to run as hard as I physically can just to try and get as far as I possibly can. But yeah, like for Houston though, it's a learning experience. They'll be able to take this and go forward. And, let's face it, the Ravens right now, to me, they look pretty good kind of thing for maybe going all the way. I'm not saying they will go to the Super Bowl, but they have to be favourites against the Chiefs or whatever next week. Kind of thing.
Well,
surely. Slight favourite.
On that exact note, Liam, are the Ravens the AFC favourites? Are the Ravens the team to beat? They're coming up against Kansas City. Kansas City away again, although I think it's fair to say Mahomes has dispelled that hoodoo, and there'll be more to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But they're away again, and the Ravens are absolutely incredibly good at the moment. Are they the team to beat in the NFL right now? Certainly the AFC. What do we think?
I think they're definitely going to be favourites against the Chiefs, and definitely the best team in the AFC. I think overall, I think the record kind of tells you that from the whole season. I think so. Yeah, and Lamar obviously near enough secured his probably MVP potentially with that game. Really,
that, yeah.
So yeah. I think I picked them to get to the Super Bowl in the pick'ems for the playoff run on the AFC side. Another thing, I suppose, they keep talking about defenses win championships. They've got an incredible defense as well. So, and I think that's what obviously killed the Texans as well. Touched on to kill the Texans. To be fair, kind of touching on Stroud a wee bit there. He didn't get sacked once, which is impressive after going up against that defense, even though it was scrambling everywhere, I suppose. But yeah, so I think Ravens definitely a team to beat. I don't know. I still have. Going back to the Niners, I still fancy the Niners maybe to go all the way in with their offensive weapons, win it all, but we shall see.
It's going to be very, very interesting. Right, we're going to move on to our final game. I think it was this is the one I think most people are considering America's game for the weekend. It was, as we said, Chiefs at Bills. This year's Arrowhead Invitational was cancelled, and instead it was moved to Buffalo. Stu, talk us through it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, this is the heading into it. It was considered America, if not, America and therefore the world's game.
The world's game. That's the should name it.
You had star-studded players. You've got Patrick Mahomes, who's been there, done it, continues to do it. Travis Kelce and his his supremely famous, supremely gorgeous brother Jason Kelce. They are like resplendent. Like that man. Like, I mean, honestly, as much as I enjoyed the game, I think I might have enjoyed Jason Kelce even more.
Gutless Jason Kelce.
What's that?
Gutless Jason Kelce.
Yeah, shirtless. That's the thing. It's just it was like Trailer Park Boys. It was absolutely amazing. Like, I'm happy to see him instantly embracing his retired life. Going, you know what? Eagles are done now.
Yep.
On the beers, support my brother. Like, I tell you what, like, if Travis and the other star that was there, Taylor Swift, do end up going all the way and getting hitched, kind of thing, at some point, I cannot wait for the best man speech at that wedding. It has to be Jason Kelce giving it, and it's going to be fantastic. But no, like, talking about the game, though, heading into it, one of the things I'd noticed was, just as you said, it wasn't the Arrowhead Invitational. It was in Buffalo, and you had guys like Dion Dawkins, like left tackle for the Bills, before basically talking about it, saying like, well, Mahomes has never been in Buffalo and had a full crowd going nuts at him. Good luck to him. So then obviously the game ends the way it does. I don't know. It's one of these things.
Of all the people to wish luck to in this league, Patrick Mahomes is not a man who tends to require a lot of luck on his side.
And the thing is, as well, is like when you look at what did the bloody Cincinnati Mayor do heading into last year as well? It's like, surely the Bills should have learned from us. Like, I know you want to kind of get inside people's heads, but maybe the Chiefs aren't the team to do that with, because you start poking the proverbial bear kind of thing and get it going. But anywho, like, speaking about the actual game instead of all the stuff that's round about it, like, I think it definitely delivered in terms of excitement. Like, I was watching it, and even as a neutral, I thoroughly enjoyed it. We had great kind of plays from either side. Like, Allen had his moments, Mahomes had his moments. Both defenses were going pretty well. You end up, like, by the time you're hitting first quarter, there's only a couple of field goals each, and it was kind of breezy there, and it was obviously cold.
Yes,
and
it was.
The breeze will come into what happened later on as the game progresses, but you head through it. When you go to half time, it's all kind of going fairly well for the Bills. They're up 17-13, and you're thinking, you know what? They've managed the Chiefs pretty well. They've got the ball for most of the game, like on offense, and that was a key thing. Is one thing I would like to bring up, just to swing back to the Ravens game for a moment. Ravens versus the Texans. The Ravens had the ball for 37 minutes, like on offense. Texans had it for 23. For the Chiefs game, the Chiefs had the ball for 23 minutes. The Bills had it for 37 minutes by the end of the game. So usually when you have a time of possession disparity that big, you'd say, well, that means that the team with the ball, that's had the ball more, is most definitely walking out with a win. So anywho, back to the game, it progresses. End of the third quarter, we're tied again, two touchdowns each. And then, the Bills are not that far ahead. And there was something that happened that I kind of clocked. I was watching with my buddy Joe here in the bar, and I said to him, I'm like, I don't like this. Because the Bills fans basically started goading the Chiefs. They started doing the Chiefs chant, like towards the end of the third quarter after their last touchdown. They were ahead at that point, but it's that way of you're going like, oh, hold on a minute here. You're only what would that be, like, 4 points up or something at that moment, kind of thing, I think, to check it. But then after that, we do get a stop. They get the ball back, and then they get held. And this for me was the key point in the game. They're on their own 35-yard line, and then the Bills decide. And I mean, I understand the thinking. It's 4th and 5. They're looking at it and they're thinking, okay, we're probably going to need to punt here. The Chiefs, for whatever reason, they have a bad change. They only get 10 guys onto the field. The Bills at the last second go, you know what? Screw it. Let's go for the fake punt. Let's see what happens here. And in this fake punt, they don't convert. So they hand the Chiefs the ball like on their own 30 or on their own 35 again, I think. And the Chiefs then promptly almost score a touchdown immediately from it. Ball gets fumbled at the back of the end zone. It's a safety. We've seen this before recently, and whether they're going to change this rule or not, kind of thing, for how it goes. But they sort of got away with one there, and you think, okay, cool. Well, they got away with it. Here we go. So they then end up kind of forcing the ball at the field a bit. They have to punt again, and at that point you kind of go, well, I wonder what would have happened if they just punted in the first place, and they maybe would have put it down, because this time they muff the punt. However, so now the Chiefs have a short field and they go up and get the touchdown. And you're left with it going, okay, well, unlike the Niners with Purdy in their game, when the Niners needed him, despite having a bad game the whole way up to then, he managed to deliver, like on that last drive against the Packers, and he got them all the way up the field to get the touchdown. For Allen, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just the pressure of playing in the home stadium or whatever, but they had a few good plays to get them further up the field. But when it came down to it, he had a wide open receiver in the end zone and he throws the ball short. He also had the crossing route with Diggs that would have got them the first down as well in that moment as well, that he passed up on that to look for the long shot. And, for me, I kind of looked at it and went, as good a game as he was having up to that point, Josh Allen seemed to kind of choked a bit there. Earlier in the game as well, though, you had Diggs fluffing on that kind of deep pass to him. That, like, if he'd hauled that in, not had the butterfingers, maybe the Bills are looking at a victory then again as well. And then it comes down to the crucial play at the end. It's the field goal attempt that would have tied it up and sent it to overtime, potentially. And I remember again looking at it at the time, and I'm saying, because you had the long shot of the sticks, and you could see the flags at the far end of the stadium. The ones that Bass was facing, they weren't really moving. So it's kind of, you're going, okay, he's looking at it going, oh, it doesn't really look that windy. But when you see the long shot for the end of the stadium, the flags down the other end are like going, and I'm like, oh, he
Really
needs to,
going.
I'm like, he needs to aim left. He needs to aim left, otherwise he's going to miss this. And as soon as the ball leaves his foot, you see it going centre. And then what happens? The ball just starts to drift off to the side and it goes wide right. So to me, I don't know if I can blame Bass, and I know the fans are maybe, it's always easy to pile on the kicker, but to me, I'm kind of going, that's one of these situations where to him it looked like he was doing the right thing. It looked like there was no breeze there, but obviously the air up above, there was a bit more wind than he thought. So I don't know. I do feel bad for the Bills though, because it's one of these things where, as a Bengals fan, it's the same thing. It's like, we've never won a Super Bowl, they've never won a Super Bowl, and they just seem cursed, because it seems to be every time they get close and they have a team that looks like they can maybe get over the line, they just come up short. But
Right, no one mention anything to do with glazing, by the way. It's banned from the rest of the pod. I'm just banning anything, any glazing related commentary is banned. Tell you what, so right, well, and it was, and yes, the game finishes out. Chiefs get it back after the missed field goal, and the rest is in the books, as they say. They walk away 27-24 victors. Now, one of the things that jumped out at me when I looked at this, and when I kind of caught up with the rest of the game this morning when I watched it, and particularly when I looked at the stats, playoff football is about your best players turning up. That is what it's all about. You look at Kansas City, Travis Kelce, he's been very, very good. He's been very good generally, but he's not been Travis Kelce this year. He's not been at his standards. It's his first sub 1,000 yard regular season since God knows how long. But last night, Travis Kelce turned up. Isaiah Pacheco turned up. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need saying, turned up. I'm going to say Josh Allen turned up last night. Josh Allen put up near enough 260 scrimmage yards. He wasn't electric through the air, but he did his thing on the ground as well. That's what he's known for. James Cook, 61 yards on 18 carries. Is wildly efficient as some of the guys we've talked about so far tonight? No, but still, it's not a bad return, particularly against a Chiefs defense that in the second half really took that step forward. They struggled against the run in the first half. Second half, they really turned it up. Stephon Diggs, 3 receptions on 8 targets, 21 yards. Had his struggles throughout the tail end of the season. Hasn't really been producing at the level that's expected of him. Is this the kind of thing, what do we think? Is this the kind of thing you look at and you go, you can't have... What's been made about Kansas's receivers not turning up, but they've had people turn up when they needed them last night. You can't have one of your best wide receivers putting in such a poor performance on the night, can you, and get away with it in that magnitude of a game? Kev, what do you think? Is that one of the things you look at last night and you think, yep, that's what Buffalo needed? They needed somebody like Diggs to help them out.
Absolutely. Diggs, to be fair though, Diggs has been terrible all season, in my opinion. I was unfortunate enough to own him in one of my fantasy leagues, and I think after week 5 he done like next to nothing in fantasy. But I don't. The surprising thing is that Shakir has actually been outperforming him. The young second year wide receiver that has looked like a better option for them. So I wonder if it's about time for them to part ways with Diggs and look to try and get somebody else in. But for me, a lot of credit has to go to the manager, because they had a lot of injuries in their defence, the Bills, and it looked like the linebackers were all hurt. I think it's the first time he's ever gone into a game with only four dressed. and they lost one at points during the game when he got hurt as well. But the managers come out and said, that's not why we lost. And I suppose they were a missed field goal away from taking it to overtime potentially, and probably, like you say, with the drop pass for Diggs, had chances to possibly win the game. So I like his attitude and saying, that's not why we lost. We had chances. We had a team on the field that could have won the game, and I like that. But I think at that level, you mentioned that the Chiefs' defense, tightened up in the third and fourth quarters, and the Bills just their defense just was shot to pieces, so they weren't able to do that. And for me, I think that's probably where it was lost.
Right, Liam, now I'm going to try and make you look like a hypocrite. I've not actually done this deliberately as well. It's just played out that way. Is this just a case of it's KC being KC? They've had a poor season by their own standards. They've made the playoffs, all the rest of it. They are in another AFC Championship game. But I think everybody in Arrowhead would agree that it's not been a standard of the season hasn't been the standard that they would expect. But here they remain, the bad smell that won't go away. Sorry, Kansas. Is this just a case of when you have Patrick Mahomes, there is no such thing as die?
I think that's definitely part of it. I think you can't really argue against Mahomes. I think maybe also the coaching, like Andy Reid's been calling. He's been saving all his plays up for the playoffs, the postseason. And then obviously, as we touched on, is Kelsey obviously stepping up as well this week. It's I suppose it's the same old for KC, but in a good way. Like they're now getting the job done. They've got all the experience. Like Mahomes, obviously, even though he's still so young, he's got ridiculous amount of experience. We touched on Stroud and Love being obviously inexperienced players, but Mahomes has been there, done it all, seen it all, and he just, I suppose, knows how to get that win. You kind of watch him. I know you see him at times maybe trying to rail up his players or whatever, but he's always just, for the most part, just doing his job, just making the plays when he needs to make the plays. It sounds too simple to be, but it's true.
Sickening. So sickening. I sound so bitter, and I suppose it's just the case I was sick of watching another team be so wildly successful. But this puts me in the impossible position that do I want to see Kansas City in another Super Bowl? Not really. Do I want to see the Ravens in any Super Bowls? No. So I feel that somehow the AFC Championship game should be nullified, and the winner between the Niners and the Lions gets to be the Super Bowl champion.
Or you can just pray that whoever wins this conference match and gets to the Super Bowl gets absolutely crushed by the Niners.
There you go. Tell you what, Stu, I like to try and come in the whole panel with a wee question about the game. Stu, here's my question to the game is not about that. Which of those two teams would you like to? So, as a Bengals fan, so you have got relatively equal degrees of dislike for both the Ravens and Kansas. Which of those two teams would you like to see the Niners the Lions? The Lions are doing it, deciding. The Lions are going to destroy.
Okay, who are the Lions facing in the Super Bowl?
It's not even going to be close. I'm talking Miami playing the Broncos doing. Which of them do you want to see get the biggest doing?
I mean, but then I'm kind of... I know you're turning this around, but it's still, who am I saying I would rather make the Super Bowl?
I know, but you can't avoid it, mate. I can't change the notes.
I'm going to say, and also this comes back to, you said something earlier on about how we don't like anything from Baltimore, and I'd like to point out, I'm actually wearing the Baltimore Orioles baseball hat, partly because it has, I do like the Orioles logo because it's the same colour as the Bengals, and I like collecting baseball hats, basically, so I have a whole bunch. I thought I would wear this as my nod to Lamar, because I quite like him.
Nod to Lamar.
So, Because Tucker plays for the Ravens, I would like to see Tucker in the Super Bowl, but I would be absolutely delighted if the Lions or Niners beat them. But it would be nice for them to take it. That's my point. Rather than the Chiefs. Sorry, studs.
I'm not sorry. Right, okay. We're gonna really anti-KC this week for some reason. Right, we're going to move on. We're going to wrap this one up. We're going to do a bit of pace now, gentlemen, because we're getting towards the end of the show. It is time to put this week in the rear view. Quick candidates for our cruise missiles of the week. Now, this is we're talking about. It's harder and harder to pick a cruise missile in the playoffs because defenses are all really good and have a habit of not giving up massive chunk plays. So, Liam, we'll start with yourself, sir. Who is your candidate for cruise missile of the week?
I was going to go for Evans' catch from Baker. He's sliding towards the ground. It was maybe not the longest throw in the world, but it was definitely an impressive play.
Beautiful catch by Evans. I need to say Baker's throw was decent. I think Evans certainly made that play what it was. Kev, what about yourself? Cruise missile candidate for us?
One just popped into my head there, actually. I'm going to go for Brock Purdy to George Kittle.
Yes, that was lovely, actually. That was a very big play. Right, rounding out then, Stu, what about yourself? With Purdy to Kittle, with Baker to Evans, who are you nominating as your cruise missile candidate?
I mean, it's maybe a bit of a cop-out here, but I'm going to go with Mahomes to the wide open Travis Kelce, mainly for the how did he get so wide open and what a giant explosion it caused when he caught it.
Yeah.
Jason Kelce jumping out and causing that earthquake.
Yeah. Do you know what? Purely for the Jason quake, I'm gonna nominate that one as well. So that is our cruise missile of the week is going to be Mahomes to Kelce, and this best makes you feel like I'm kind of settling the karmic balance of me spending the last 10 minutes slagging off Kansas. Right. Our cruise crush'em candidate for the week. I'm going to take the lead in this one, and I'm going to nominate Baker. I think Baker, despite the interception that lost them the game, the story's brilliant. I love Baker's story this year, and I think he really did equip himself very well despite going out. Baker is my candidate. We'll go reverse on the last one. Stu, you want to take us? Who would you nominate as your crusher of the week?
I'm going to go. I'm copping out and going joint. So I'm going to go the Kansas City Chiefs defense because I love the way they stepped up and just went out to like murder any rusher or like anyone that was running for the Bills kind of thing at the end of the game. They just dialed up the pressure, and I'm doing that joint with another runner, Pacheco, because Pacheco.
Angry runs.
Studs talk to him a lot. It's like watching a cartoon character sometimes the way he runs, and it kind of is because he just has those skedaddly legs, but he's so angry. So he's kind of fun to watch. Like I wish we had him in the Bengals. Like he's good. I enjoy him.
Incredibly fun play to watch. Liam, coming to yourself for your crusher of the week.
I was going to go for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think again the Sun God, another efficient week. Not maybe loads of yards on the ground catching, but got his touchdown. Just been what he's been all season, hasn't he?
You know, he was, and he had another excellent week. Well, the one I found out about him through the week, which I don't know that I get it, but it feels like a missed opportunity. Do you know what the nickname he apparently prefers is? Saint. Your name's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the nickname that you prefer is Saint, not Sun God. I feel like that's a self-inflicted demotion. But okay, that's just my little observation, a little tidbit. Kev, it's time for one of the best things in the world, a double dunt of Kev. Because what could be better than one bit where Kev gets to talk, two bits where Kev gets to talk. So take us away, mate. Finishes off our cruise crusher and then our seamless segue into Kev's balled out of the week.
Crushed it. I'm going to go for Lamar Jackson. Over 100 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, taking his team through. So that's my crushed it this week. And for my player that balled out, I'm going to go for in the same game. I'm going to give something to the Texans this week, and that's Steven Sims for his 67-yard punt return touchdown to make it interesting at least until halftime.
It's a beautiful. Everybody loves a punt return touchdown. Right, okay. we're going to wrap this one up. Time, as always, to close it out with our statistic of the week. We give a shout out to Dan this week for ruining my statistic of the week by posting it in the group chat earlier. When I was trying to keep it a secret, and then he linked it to everybody. But I do again, resettling those karmic balances by being nice about Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes has just clocked in his 13th playoff win. Now, it might well wind up being unlucky for some. We'll wait and see how he fails next week against the Ravens. But even if he were to lose next week against the Ravens, Patrick Mahomes has more playoff wins than, and it's a list, the Cardinals, the Jags, the Saints, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Bucks, the Lions, the Browns, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Jets, and the Texans. The man is a one-man dynasty. He accumulates stats like no other, and yeah, it's his world, and we're just all living in it, I suppose. So, yes, our statistic of the week on Patrick Mahomes and his absolutely hilariously prolific playoff performances. Well, that brings us to a close. It is the end of the divisional round, everybody. We have got 2 more weekends of football to look forward to. Well, we'll get to it. 2.5. I'll call the Pro Bowl shenanigans 0.5 of a week. So 2.5 weekends of football left to enjoy. Now remember, everybody, pardon me again, remember your championship weekend starts on Thursday with the guys and the preview crew. They're going to be talking about everything to do with the NFC and the AFC championship games. There's a lot to look forward to there. So make sure you get involved and reach out, get in touch with us. Remember, to get in touch, you can find us on X at Irn-Cru. You can find us on Insta, grid_iron_crew. Stick Irn-Cru into YouTube. Stick it into wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and as I keep saying, get in touch, folks. We would love to hear from you. Get your say on what we discuss on the crew. Thank you very much, chaps. It's been yet another fantastic episode talking football. I've had 2 weeks off. I've been away for ages, it feels like. So it's nice to get back and talk ball with you. Liam, thank you very much for being on with me tonight, sir.
Always a pleasure. It's always good to chat ball. And I'm looking forward to a nice, more relaxing weekend this weekend coming up. Don't have to have any nerves all over the place, so I can just chill out and enjoy the games.
You can enjoy just sitting having a beer and relax for a game for a change. Last man standing. Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought the Packers fan would have been the last man standing? Stu, thank you very much, mate. Another great evening talking ball.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me along again. As always, it's been a little while since I've been on here too, so it was good to get some chatting. And yeah, Liam, welcome to the relaxed playoff watching club. Like, I've actually really enjoyed the playoffs this year, just because there's literally no stakes. I can just watch games and go, this is fun. But here's to next year.
And rounding off, Kev, do you know what? I'm going to say you've been enjoying it as well, mate. Getting to relax for a change and just enjoy watching other people's glory and other people's misery as well. Thank you very much for coming on tonight, mate.
Thank you very much, Brian. Been a pleasure as always.
And with that, folks, we will catch you next week for a review of all things Championship Weekend. Make sure you join us then.